I was going to start this video by saying that the RG35XX H is the culmination of development of some of the best devices of the last 3 years, like the RG351P, the RG350M. But that would be ignoring the evolution we've gone through as a small tech community. So what does this device have that the others don't? It has price going for it. It has form factor going for it. But on the other hand, the competition have better firmware options for more creative tastes. Stick around at the end and you'll see what I mean. And specifically, this is going to be a low-key RetroArch comparison video. I want to suggest that as an alternative. It has a bigger screen. It is admittedly a lot bigger, but the ergonomics are much better. And it has a little bit more power under the hood. Plus, I have some bonus devices at the end of this video that I will suggest over the RG35XX H. So let's get into this review / comparison video of the Anbernic RG35XX H. So thank you to GoGameGeek for providing this device. There are links below, affiliate links to their website. The reason why I like supporting them is their shipping is good to outlying areas. Whether you're in the States or anywhere in the world, if I quote a price, that is the price you're going to get, and you're going to get pretty good shipping with that. And overall, they haven't given me any reason to think that they aren't trustworthy, and they seem to offer pretty good service. So let's take a quick look at the device. We've got the glossy buttons that Anbernic have started to use lately. Very nice buttons, got a good travel to them. I've actually been sitting at my desk doing this with them to try and get them to scrape, and I don't seem to be able to get that. Nice rubber membranes, they just feel good. I like them. These are plastic, not rubber. A sort of a firm, soft press to these start and select buttons. Very nicely positioned start and select buttons. This Dpad, it's got a little bit of a sharp edge. It's not as rough textured as the RG405M, but it's, and this actually has a softer edge to it. Yeah, this definitely has a sharper edge and it's a smoother Dpad, but yeah, similar feeling membrane. I wouldn't be surprised if it has the same membrane as the RG405M, but definitely a sharper edge to it and a smoother Dpad. The membrane is really good on this Dpad. And then obviously we've got switch style joysticks. I know Shem from RetroBreeze did a test on the fact that they snap to cardinals, but on a device like this that barely needs joysticks, these are pretty good. They've got a little bit of travel to them. You'll see they've got quite a bit of sort of rock to them, and they are not really recessed, but they're recessed enough to make it pocketable, so that's good. We've got our speaker holes here, so downward facing speakers. We've got our SD cards here, dual SD card, which helps us with some custom firmware options. We've got the typical Anbernic R2, L2 here, which on a device like this is just a really good design. We'll speak about this later, but we've got HDMI output, which is great. We've got the DC OTG here, another OTG port there. Function button, which is really nice throughout the operating system to have that. It opens a menu in every single emulator. Very good. Your audio jack, the little rubber pads that we've come to expect from an Anbernic device, which I love these. I really like this about Anbernic. We've got a volume rocker on this side, power button on this side, and a reset button. So you've kind of got buttons everywhere. It's just on the bottom where you don't have buttons, but you do have stuff going on. So there's no sort of naked edges to this device. And then we've got our 3.5-inch screen, which we'll get into later and do some comparisons and tests of that, but a perfectly decent screen on here. And then we've got a lovely textured plastic for the case and the shell. And I'm really happy with my choice of this clear plastic. I think it really looks great. I've considered the black to go with my RG350M. Kind of like a nostalgia there of these modern emulators. I'm pretty happy with this because it is a nice companion to my Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, which twinsies. So the standout features of this device, it's one of the nicest form factors. Like, I really like this form factor. I'm glad that Anbernic stuck with it and perfected, the heritage of the RG351P and the RG350M. And the price, on Go Game Geek, it's $89. It's $68 on Anbernic, but that's excluding shipping. So you're probably going to get out cheaper on Go Game Geek. So the price is pretty good on this. It has HDMI output, which you'll see just now is a really nice thing to have. And the F button, I feel, is just, in terms of quality of life, really makes this a nice device to use for anyone, like whether you're a pro or a novice. It's really nice to have a F button that does menu features throughout the system. But the critical issues, I know this is a little thing, but I actually got there. So I actually got my SD card in like that. And that is a bit of a problem because you could accidentally push that in and break the whole SD card mechanism. So that is a bit of a concern. Anyway, so I just thought I'd mention it. It's a small thing, but I thought it was worth mentioning. And as much as other reviewers say that the firmware is okay, and it is, the firmware for, just pick up and play is okay. And I mulled over this for a while. I just feel like in 2024, this firmware is kind of unacceptable. It needs to be better. There's no artwork scraping. I found quite a bit of glitching, especially in RetroArch. I had to reset RetroArch at least 3 times while doing this video. But we'll get to it shortly. We'll get to all of that stuff in this video. So what it plays, we do get a little bit more headroom than the original RG35XX H. So you're going to get some N64 gameplay. It's the same story. Some N64 gameplay, some PSP, some Dreamcast, NDS, Nintendo DS should be okay. A little bit fiddly because it doesn't have a touch screen. So 2 of the most notable hardware features is the fact that it has HDMI out, which gives you the option to consoleize it, and I was able to do that with my 2.5 gigahertz Ultimate controller, which was really cool. And then the F button. So whether you're in a standalone emulator or RetroArch, that function button will open the menu features and allow you to control the system. So the first D-pad test I like to do is Power Blade because it is the most sensitive to D-pad ghost inputs. So there you'll see if I wiggle the D-pad, he moves around. I can do my diagonals. Let's see. I don't think it's going to affect my gameplay, but you can see there that I am getting movement even though I'm pressing down. So there's the first test, and then the next one I like to do is Contra. So Contra, the same story. I'm getting ghost inputs there. Like I said, a Contra isn't as sensitive as Power Blade. But as you can see, my gameplay isn't too encumbered by it. Okay, and then let's test Darkwing Duck. So to give you an idea, one of the worst D-pads I've seen in a while was the PowerKitty X55, and the Darkwing Duck would move here as well. So Darkwing Duck is a good kind of calibrator to this test because it's not as sensitive, and you can see I'm wiggling the D-pad, and we're not getting any movement from Darkwing Duck. It is sensitive, but it's not ridiculously sensitive. I have been sitting at my desk pushing these buttons over and over again to try and get some scraping going, and I cannot see, let me just look with my eyes. I cannot see much scraping going on there. So these buttons are pretty good and pretty well placed and sized and all that sort of thing. I'm sure you'll get scraping over time, but in my limited testing in the studio, I'm not getting any body scrape on the buttons. And then overall, the action buttons, the D-pad, the sticks, these are very clicky. Very nice, firm membrane resistance, very good retro feeling to it, but maybe a little bit firm for some. If you compare it to like an original Game Boy and that it is quite stiff. But I think that's good in terms of longevity. I think they're going to last a long time. And then these sticks were designed for a device like this, not for a higher end device like the Nintendo Switch, who invented these things. I think that the Switch is... I digress, but I think the Switch is due for a major overhaul, and I think these sticks are great for little devices like this, but not great for higher-end devices where you're playing AAA games on sticks like this. Is just not acceptable in 2024. So for a device like this, these sticks are just perfect. You're not really going to, there will be, a few reasons to use this stick in some first-person shooters that you manage to get this to play, but most of the time, you're going to be using this instead of the D-pad in games to give you a more modern experience. I've been playing the Avatar RPG for Game Boy Advance, and I've been using the joystick just because it feels better. But I mean, the original hardware just used a D-pad. Okay, let's quickly get these two out here. This is the RG3551P, which I remember being pretty good. So the shake test in the RG3551P is pretty good. The 350M was terrible. It's like a box of matches. So the RG35XX H, also quite bad. It's an erroneous test, but you know, I think some people might be bothered by that. I remember when I first got my RG350M, and it's the only device I owned. It was my first retro gaming device, and I picked it up and it shook like a box of matches. And I was like, I paid money for this, like good money. Why is it shaking? You know, so I think it's a good point to make. And the fact that Anbernic aren't dampening their shoulder buttons just is beyond me. So we're going to do a screen comparison with the Anbernic RetroArch. And, you know, I've done a body analysis of this and never really compared it to this. But so these buttons have got a little bit more travel. This thing's also pretty rattly. So this D-pad is just fantastic. Like it is absolutely wonderful for fighting games, especially. This thing is amazing, but just for everything, you know, like I said, I was playing Avatar, the RPG, and I was using the joystick because it just had a natural kind of move the character around vibe. This does that. So you kind of just wiggle it around to do what you want to do. That feels really good. And these buttons, I've been mentioning this throughout my videos, through the time that I've been doing this, and I've been saying, why is nobody making bigger buttons? This has bigger buttons, which, you know, the original hardware has bigger buttons, and why are we still doing these tiny little buttons, you know? So that is nice about it, and it has this beautiful bigger screen. Okay, so I've been looking at this for a while now, and what I can see, obviously this is not really comparing apples with apples because, I mean, this is a smaller screen, it's a cheaper device, but the price is not that different between these two. And the saturation is better on this. So this is a little bit more washed out. Nice and clear, nice and crisp, but definitely better saturation, better blacks. You know, if you look at this compared to this kind of feels like an OLED screen compared to an LCD screen. That's the kind of comparison. I've got richer blacks, richer colors. You know, it's darker. It is a darker screen. So this is set to 50%, 50%, and this one is darker than this one. So, you know, whatever that means. Overall, to my eye, this is just you know, how it feels to me looking at it in the studio here. This looks nicer. I prefer this screen. This is definitely more washed out, more of a magenta tone, whereas this has just got a rich, warm tone to it compared to the screen. I'm going to set the brightness to 1. All right, so this, into my eye in the studio, looks very dim. So let's switch the studio lights off. And that looks really good for a low light situation. I've got quite a bit of light bleed going on here. Let's switch the screen off. But this is a good dim light, and you know, playing it in bed at night and that, it's okay. It's a little bit bright, a little bit on the bright side when it's in a pitch black room, but this is pretty good. But let's go into the bright situation now. So I fired up Darkwing Duck, and this is at its brightest with, you know, my bright studio lights, and it's not blowing out the camera. So what happens is the camera will overexpose and it'll tell me, which it isn't doing. So you know, this is the brightest screen that I can get. It is quite a dark game. Here you go. And usually these blow out. So this is not the brightest for outdoor gaming. And then the most important and scientific test of my YouTube channel is what I affectionately call crotch time. And here we go. It is very pocketable. So here is where my Anbernic Arc test really does fall flat. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Like it's probably one of the least pocketable devices that I own. I don't know if you can see that, but that is just annoyingly. So this is a backpack device. This is very big. It just isn't pocketable. That is just where my little theory falls flat. Is this is very pocketable, and if that's something that's important to you, then this device is good. But you know, the Trim UI Smart, which has a really big screen, is also very pocketable. So is the Miu Mini Plus. Okay, RGB30, not so portable, but still pocketable, you know. I'm going to whip out the old scale, and we're going to go, cool, 181.7 grams. We've got the Miu Mini Plus at 163 grams. We've got the RGB30 at 205.8 grams. We've got the Trim UI Smart Pro, which has got a big battery, big screen, all that kind of stuff, 230 grams. And then we've got the Anbernic Arc, which I do find to be quite light, 250 grams. Okay, so the Mini Plus, obviously the lightest, but this is still a very light device. Now, I want to compare this to my most premium compact retro gaming device, and that is the Retroid Pocket 2S. This thing has the most incredible in-hand feeling. It's got these great trigger buttons, which makes it less pocketable, but has these wonderful trigger buttons. It's very solid. The plastic feels super premium. It's one of the nicest devices, and I gave it the best device of 2023 in the retro gaming scene. So there's that. Now I've just held that in my hand. Let's do this. Now, the only thing you're missing is that ergonomics of the finger grip. So that really feels good in the hand. But this plastic, okay, there's something about the Retroid Pocket 2S plastic that just feels amazing, but this is pretty good. This is pretty damn good. And when you consider this is a fair amount cheaper, that is cool. You know, these shoulder buttons are not dampened. They shake a lot. This thing, it doesn't rattle at all. So this is a very premium device. This feeling in the hand, it does feel cheaper, but it is a very nice, compact, good feeling device with nice, firm rubber membrane buttons. You know, the compactness of it does also really feel good. This form factor is good. They've chamfered the corners, so it's not sharp in the hand like the RGB30 is. It does feel good in the hand. Not quite on the level of the RP2S, but a really good feeling in the hand device. And compared to the devices that I'm going to compare it to later, I would say it's kind of in the middle of the bunch in terms of the in-hand feeling. And then, you know, my overall build quality, I'm going to give it a 4.8. It really is exceptionally made. You know, the rattle does still bug me, the fact that Anbernic don't dampen their buttons, but it is a very well-made device. It's really well put together. It's got a good screen. It's got good joysticks, good buttons. Everything is good. Okay, now my audio test. This is not scientific, but we're going to just get this closer and get a bit of a test going. All right. So the sound is a little bit boxy on the Anbernic Arc, but it is front-facing. So that is a huge win. So I'm definitely getting distortion on the audio on the high end with this device compared to the Anbernic Arc. That's got bigger speakers in there. So definitely getting a better audio, even though it is a little bit boxy, but getting a better audio from the Anbernic Arc. But you know, on these retro devices, it's not the end of the world, but it is a little bit muffled and distorted on this, which I haven't actually noticed now that I think about it, because in the real world experience of it, playing it at soft volume, it's not that bad. But it is something to note, you know, the audio isn't fantastic. And then I haven't done my battery test, so I will put the information of my test on the screen now and give my findings there. I feel like the real world experience of this is fairly good. And the reason for that is because instead of doing a sleep mode, I almost never do that. What I usually do is I just press and hold and it says goodbye. And it switches off. And that just, because it does that, you end up switching the device off more, and that saves you on battery life. Okay, so let's go through the operating system. I don't feel like it's good enough when stuff like Onion OS exists on something like the MIUI Mini Plus. But I'm going to go through and show you the things that do make a case for it being a good operating system. One of the things is a search feature. When I originally did the original RG35XX, which has the same operating system, and I told everyone to use Garlic, people reached out to me and said, but now I don't have a search feature. And that is true. It has the search feature, whoops, and we go, let's say Contra, you go, okay, and you can now go through it. And if you look at the top here, it has a little RA that pops up every now and again. That means it's going to open up in the RetroArch core. If it doesn't, it's going to open in the Standalone core. So once you get to know the system and you maybe like a certain game in the Standalone core, the RetroArch core, you find out that a specific game you want to play plays better in one of those, you can then choose it via the search feature. And that's how I would recommend using the system. Search feature and history. So another really nice thing is that it keeps the score. It remembers what you've been playing, and you can go back and go, oh, what was I playing yesterday? Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and go in. It remembers what you've been looking at. And then the other way that I would say navigate this is set your favorites. So when you're in a system and you're over a game and you press start, it will favorite it. And that will then start building a library of your favorite games. I've been playing Alien Hominid I love that game, on Game Boy Advance. And you can slowly but surely build up your favorite games here. So that is really nice. It's simple and it's great to follow. So if you're new to this and you just want to use their games that they've got on here, it's a really cool system to use. Okay, moving on. So, we do have Wi-Fi, but there's no artwork scraping. So again, they are trying to encourage us to use their ROM files and all that kind of thing and just use the game device as is. But I really want to use my ROMs and I want to use a better operating system. And I think I have mentioned this in this video, but to press and hold the power at any moment in time to switch it off is a good thing. Whether or not that goodbye splash screen is very nice or not is debatable, but that is pretty cool. I also like the fact that we have a volume indicator over here. So you can see the volume there. It seems like in RetroArch games, I have a volume indicator there, but I don't seem to have a volume indicator when I'm using standalone emulators. I have messed up the RetroArch settings a couple of times. So I've gone in, whether I'm trying to work with bezels or whatever I'm trying to do in the back end of RetroArch, it kind of just messed everything up globally and then I had to reset it. But if you go to the main menu and you go to RetroArch settings, you can reset your RetroArch. And then something just to kind of make a case for using these standalone emulators is the menu system. You've got this menu system and it's the same throughout. Like I showed, it doesn't have the volume indicator when you're in the standalone emulator, so that's a downside. But overall, it's just much simpler. So if you're new to this, the stock operating system with the standalone emulators is quite a nice, simple system to use. They've got these shaders that you can try out, but it does enable them throughout the system. So I've done the scanline one and it seems to work nicely throughout all the systems. So I do kind of like that. And then, once you're in the game, it's the same menu. You lose a few features on some of the emulators or what have you, but it's pretty much the same throughout. So I do like this game rooms more on the stock operating system than I do using RetroArch. The other, thing that I like on the stock operating system to make a case for the stock operating system is this little apps. See, it's tucked away in the RA game menu, but you go down here to here and you go here and you can rotate. So they've made a specific folder for vertical arcade games, which I find quite nice, V Arcade. So you go in here and you can play vertical games. And that's sometimes a bit of a thing, and it puts you off because to find vertical games and then to set it all correctly is quite a frustration. So here you can just go to the vertical games folder and have vertical arcade rotation on, and then it will rotate the games to vertical, and then you can play them like this. It also enables shaders. That's going to affect performance on a little device like this, so I don't recommend that. This is going to set a timer to shut down. I've tried this night mode. It doesn't set it to yellow. What it does do, it makes all your RetroArch games really dim. So I'm just going to switch this off. And there's a global setting for your bezels, which I've now turned off because I just find, again, it's glitchy and I'm having issues with getting them set correctly, scaling and all that sort of thing. So I'm just leaving that off. I think the problem with this operating system is that Onion OS exists and it just kind of blows this out the water. And so to summarize, the things I don't like about this operating system is it's not creating the bezels correctly. That night mode is just going to make your games dimmer. It might be nice if you're in a very dark room. Everything's kind of executed, but not really executed. And the fact that I am finding RetroArch quite glitchy. I think in them wanting to create these global changes, it's become quite hard to work with. So if I change something here, something else breaks on the other end. And so just overall, I'm finding it a frustrating system to work with. And I want to make it my own. I want to put my own ROMs on my own games and make it my own system. And this is not really geared towards that. This is my favorite part of the video, the costing analysis. Other devices, similar devices that you could buy for a similar price. The extra expense, maybe it's a little bit more expensive. Is it worth it? So the first one we're going to look at is the Anbernic Arc, a larger screen, really beautiful screen. You're getting bigger buttons here, you're getting front-facing speakers, you're getting this wonderful D-pad, you're not getting joysticks, but joysticks are not that necessary on a little device like this, you know? So, you know, maybe this one does play more PSP than the RG35XX H, so PSP is a little bit of a mission on here. But other than that, in terms of an alternative to the RG35XX H, this, to me, is just fantastic. The massive downside compared to this is the fact that it is massive. You know, it is huge. It pales in comparison. The next one I want to talk about is the Miu Mini Plus. To me, in my opinion, this is the best compact, affordable retro gaming emulator handheld on the market, thanks to Onion OS. It's also, they've updated build quality compared to the original Miu Mini, so it is really well made, and it has all the retro feels. So if you get the gray version, you know, you're getting just the ultra retro feels. I love this little purple one, really, really nice if you want something alternative. But you know, you're getting that Game Boy experience with a beautiful, beautiful screen. This one is $69.99. I know it's vertical, but I have to mention it because it is one of the best devices on the market. Onion OS is just fantastic. And this, if you are interested in Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Game Gear, this is the emulator to beat. And if those are the systems that you're wanting to emulate, I reckon this is the one you should be buying. And here's a device that I haven't thought about in a while, and I'm going to do a video about this device with MinUI on it because I think it will fix the device, is the TrimUI Smart Pro. Lovely device. I haven't gone back to it. Even though I gave it a good review, I feel like there's something with the software. Like, this is a great piece of hardware. It feels good in your hands. I like the dome switch buttons. So it's you know, people didn't like these sticks. I've mentioned Retro Breeze in this video already. He hated these sticks, and they're a bit weird, but overall, just a really good device. You know, you're getting a big screen for a good price. This device is $79 on Go Game Geek, and I think with MinUI, this is going to be a really good contender for the RG35XX H. You know, if you don't mind the size, this is still very pocketable. If you go back to my pocketability test, this slipped into my pocket really nicely. So you're not losing too much on pocketability, but you're gaining that massive screen. So this is actually the sleeper alternative in this video to all, compared to all these devices. And then another device that I just have to mention, because I picked this up recently because I'm getting back into like Game Boy games and all that sort of thing, like older games. This is one of the sort of quintessential old game emulators on the market. I don't like the fact that this bottom is sharp. It really kind of weighs on you after a while if you've been playing it for a while. I think they could have done without these switch sticks on here, because this is a Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color emulator. And so again, if that is those are the systems you want to play, it's a little bit more money. So this one is $99. So I kind of would lean more towards the Miu Mini Plus, but this is a really nice device for the 720p square screen. It is just a fantastic device. Controls are pretty good. D-pad's a little bit sharp on the edges. D-pad's definitely better on the Miu Mini Plus. So there's another downside on this one. Very good firmware. Jealous comes shipped on the device. Front-facing speakers. But that screen, just a beautiful, beautiful screen. So another worthy contender, but a little bit more money. Sorry, this is a very long comparison. It was supposed to be quick, but the other device, so in terms of if you were watching this and you're like, why is this guy showing me cheap crap? Just show me the most premium, beautiful thing that I can buy that's going to play these games, and that would be the Retroid Pocket 2S. This thing is fantastic. It feels great in the hand. The controls are good. These triggers are actually better than the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. The joysticks are great. It's got way more power. You can play PSP games. You can use it to stream your games from your PC, even though the screen is too small for that. But, you know, it is a fantastic device. Front-facing speakers. This is $99 ex shipping. So I think in the States, this is a good alternative because the shipping's not going to be too bad. But if you're in an outlying area like myself, shipping is ridiculous. And import duties are even worse because they use DHL. So this is a great device, a premium device, but it's going to cost you a pretty penny. However, yes, there are glaring missteps. This device is like walking up to a millionaire's mansion and then inside you see this. But if you are looking for a compact, horizontal, affordable device that emulates all the way up to N64 and some PSP, this is the device for you.